Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of LinkedIn Live. I'm Abhishek. I'm the founder of VideoFarm, and today I'll be hosting Dhruv. Great to have you here. Dhruv.
Hi, Abhishek. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, man. Hey, so Dhruv is the founder of Thrive. Thrive is an online food ordering platform for restaurants, and we are at Umpeka's LinkedIn Live. We are both founders building SaaS businesses. That is, we are building SaaS businesses capital efficiently. We call it the value SaaS way. So before I go ahead and formally introduce Dhruv, I mean, I would like to talk a little bit about why we are speaking today and what I've seen in Thrive all through these years. So I've met Dhruv and the Thrive team in March 2020, just before the pandemic. They're a wonderful team. In the last 18 months, not only were they able to challenge two of the largest funded startups in the food delivery space, but also got Domino's India, that is the parent company Jubilant Foodworks, to invest in their platform. What Dhruv and his team were able to accomplish in the middle of a pandemic is nothing short of spectacular. It's just a wonderful achievement. Thrive is like one of those startups, like all of us as founders, like continue to get inspired by. And as someone have constantly rooted for their success, I feel that it's my privilege to be speaking with Dhruv today. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Dhruv. Dhruv is the founder of Thrive, an online food ordering platform for restaurants. Recently, Domino's India, that is Jubilant Foodworks, has invested in Thrive. More than 3,500 restaurants use Thrive's online ordering platform today. I'm sure the number might be a little higher than what we saw yesterday. Thrive is a great alternative for restaurants that want to use delivery platforms that charge hefty commissions. In this edition, basically, what we're going to talk about is how Thrive has actually been able to challenge these big players and what their vision is, what Dhruv's own experiences are, and how the Domino's India deal actually came through. If you have any questions to ask Dhruv, please leave a comment and we will go ahead and ask Dhruv. So let's get right into it, Dhruv.
No, thank you, Abhishek. I think those words are very kind. And I think March 2020, when all of us met, I think that was a great experience. I think just meeting different SaaS businesses from the entire country, I think in itself was an eye opener to see what's going on with everybody else. So I think for us, a quick summary, right? I think post the pandemic, like most of us, the SaaS business took a hit. We were functioning in India within offline retail. So I think for us, as our previous avatar, which was hashtag loyalty, which was a marketing CRM for offline retailers, our subscriptions went into complete pause mode. So I think start of the pandemic, the idea was we went back to the drawing board, and first thing was to kind of figure out how do we as a company survive, ensure that we get paid, our team gets paid, and we're able to sort of continue on this entrepreneurial journey. So what was interesting was we noticed maximum utilization of our tool at that moment was around online delivery, and this was with primarily the call to action was a food delivery application, and that's when we started thinking that we have the CRM or the marketing tool that we offer. Why not try and solve the biggest problem for our industry, right? Which is low margins on food delivery. And that is something. While we felt it was very ambitious, but we felt that we had a head start. We had an industry know-how, and we decided we had nothing to lose at that moment, and we will go all in and try and solve this problem. So I think that's when things started to sort of move. A lot of people don't know there was a precursor to Thrive. We had launched online gifting platform called Save Local, which was for restaurants to raise money by selling gift cards. So we did that for a short 60-day period between April and May, just at the start of the pandemic. I think that gave us a lot of confidence of running a transactional business. We were able to kind of raise north of about 20 lakhs in a span of 2 months. And that's when we felt that, we have the ability, the tech, the team, the interest to kind of solve this. So I think that's how things sort of started. And we've been lucky. It's been the right product at the right time, with a lot of support from the industry itself. and all our players, I think we've managed to kind of move in the right direction. Yeah, but that's as a nutshell.
Okay. So let me get into a little bit specifics, Dhruv. Okay. The two large established players in the food delivery space, and there was a third player, and they bowed out. Literally that large, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars of funding. In the face of such a huge challenge, like how did you guys decide to start off? Like did you feel that this was a daunting task, or did you feel that you had a strong know-how, or how did you guys go about it?
Honestly, at the start, a lot of people said we're making a big mistake. I think that we should try and solve another problem or another market. I think yeah, the fact that all three of us as co-founders knew each other and we've been doing business with each other through the previous product, I think that gave us a lot of faith and confidence. Uh, it's not very common that all three of us are very bullish on one action point. I think for this one, all three of us were completely certain that we move ahead in this direction. So I think that was enough confidence that we needed. But to be honest, the idea was when we started, we didn't want to think marketing dollars or the scale of in terms of valuation for the partners that we had. Right. The idea was to take the single problem in the industry, create a tool around it, and take it to our customers, right? So I think ever since start point, there were a lot of people who came to us for different partnerships, investments, and whatnot, right? The idea was to kind of for us was we need to get a product which is live, which is used by customers, and it is different from what is going on with Zomato, Swiggy. So idea was, I think, in a nutshell, to kind of ignore what they were doing and to create a new model, and to do it our way, right? Because that's the only way we felt we can even differentiate ourselves. So, like I said, I think the industry played a great role. I think in terms of the order direct movement, and ever since then, I think it's just been sort of scale for us, right? So we got that we call that product market fit, right? We were able to get that a little early with this product, and the idea was then just keep scaling.
Awesome, Dhruv. I mean, I'm so glad that you didn't listen to all of those people, and to have three founders literally on the same page, that's not quite common. So
Yeah.
kudos to you guys of to actually pull that off, right? So, like, I mean, let me ask you another question, right? So, like, it's fine that you guys chose a path. You guys like completely ignored what people with millions of dollars were doing. But like, how did you convince your own customers, that the restaurant, to actually work with you folks? Like, how did you get them onto the platform in the first place?
Yeah. So I think that was our biggest challenge, to be honest. I think it's not creating the product, not the partnerships. I think there were enough people to back us in terms of in terms of different facets of the product, right? Bringing in payments, bringing in logistics. I think those are things that we got a great response, because what happens is when there is somebody who is that large, there is always a number two, number three, number four who's missed out on that scale. So we were able to kind of bring them in as partners, and we decided we'll work with them together. But customers were a challenge. I think initially uh, we were having those conversations ourselves. We were lucky to have a team through the previous product that was well versed with the restaurant industry. So it was a lot of customer conversations. The idea and why it was so different and challenging and fun in a way is all this is happening during COVID, right? And the F&B industry in India or any offline industry in India, especially on the SMB side, is known to function only in person. There is not much that happens on Google Meets and Zooms, and but the idea, I think, the industry also understood that this is survival for them. When you take away their revenue in dine-in, and when you don't get money through online ordering, there is only one partner who's actually working on your side. So I think
Okay.
once we were able to get the message to the restaurateur, we started getting more inbound interest. We were lucky to get a few early adopters. I think that was also a strategy to get from bigger markets to get certain adopters that are vocal about where the industry is moving. So once we were able to get them in, I think together, then things went to the next step, and so on and so forth.
Great, Dhruv. I mean, that's wonderful. So, how much of, I mean, you guys have been in the restaurant space for like the past 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, with your previous product of the CRM and the loyalty program, right? So, how much of the know-how of how restaurants actually function did actually play in your favor when you actually launched this new platform?
Yeah. I think all of it. I think it's such a complicated industry. It's sad, but there's so many new entrants that we see that don't solve basic problems and then perish. I think every industry has its complication. This is unlike no other. But I think one advantage that we had was with the previous company, we had all the integrations, all the connects, the team in terms of F&B in place. So personally, I feel anybody who tried to solve this problem uh, after COVID, right, and did not have the experience and has not survived to this day. We've seen enough in our ventures that have shut down. So I think we were uniquely positioned. um, of course, you come in with 50 million in the bank, which we have a few competitors. That's a different story. But bootstrapping it without industry knowledge in these times was a strict no. So I think it played a massive role in terms of how we went about our journey.
Great, Dhruv. So, I mean, you spoke about SMBs and how we are very specifically used to doing stuff in person, right? So let's talk about what you actually went through. Let's go back to April 2020. India was absolutely in the middle of a lockdown. What were you going through at the time, and what was your founding team actually discussing at that point of time?
That was a dark phase. I think like for most of us, I think I still remember March 22nd we moved out of our office because I think that's when the lockdown sort of started. And I think the first thing we went and saw was how much money do we have in the bank in case revenue doesn't flow, and who's going to pay, who's not going to pay. So I think first step was we decided we'll go speak to our customers and tell them we're pausing their subscription before they tell us, and we show them that empathy. I think that was the first step that we decided we'll take, and we'll be proactive about this. But I think by first week of April, I think we were able to understand that this is here to stay. I mean, this is not a 1 week or a 1 month phenomena. Things were only escalating globally at that point. So I think for us, we had to go back to the drawing board. I think the idea was to kind of hit restart. And to be very honest, right, and this actually happened at one of the OPECA sessions in March. I still remember we were asked a question in terms of the problem that you're solving for your customer, right? Where does it rank in terms of one, two, three, or wherever it is, right? In terms of the, and at that point, I felt we were trying to fit in the problem we were trying to solve, maybe two, three, four, towards a little higher in the chain. But it gave us a unique opportunity at that point to say, let's solve the biggest problem, which is revenue for these guys. So, but yeah, that was a tough phase. I think I'm glad we could come out of it in positively. But I think we still had our decent amount of churn, team members that we had to let go of. I mean, it was not the best of times. I feel we were able to get a hold of ourselves by June because that's when we were able to launch the first product, save local, generate some cash, and then start piloting Thrive by about July. So I think that first couple of months were very hard.
Right. I mean, yes, I think most of the companies that we speak with, I mean, typically have gone through a really dark phase through that phase. And I think, I mean, what's commendable is, how you guys, like, I mean, actually got yourself together in just 1 week. And you guys decided that, okay, this is not a high enough problem that we are solving. We'll try to solve another problem. And having years of experience in that phase probably helped you move on to another one. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the question that I'm trying to ask is, how did you guys like, what did you guys like? think about that near death moment then when you were at that point almost. I mean, if I should call it that. And like, how do you guys like bounce back from that? What kind of mental pieces did you actually had to put together as a team, as an individual? What did you have
Yeah.
to do that?
Yeah. I think that phase was very difficult. I think I cannot even begin to imagine how single founders would go through such a phase. I think the advantage that we had was probably spending 60 to 90 minutes on a Google Meet with just the three of us, just throwing ideas, talking. What's the worst that can happen at this point? Where are we? Where do we move? What direction? So I think there was a lot of emotional and ideation support across the team. Um I think the set of people who were the most uncomfortable, I think, in that phase were our team members more than the founders, because we felt at some point we have the pedigree to turn things around. But I think the team was waiting for some announcement. What are we going to do? How are we going to react? So I think that sort of scare also sort of put us on the edge, and pushed us to work harder. But I think, to be honest, I think we I still remember we took our top 20 customers, um, and whatever ideas we were getting, right, their business was also shut. Everyone had time at that phase. We were just having long conversations with all our customers, and just throwing different things to different people. And we picked this lot very carefully. These are initiators, the ones that make a difference within the industry. So I think they didn't know what they were doing for us at that moment. I think for them it was just a regular catch up, but it was nice to kind of get their support, their thoughts, which really helped us kind of frame what we're doing. How do we run aggregation in a new way, right? And that's what it came out to be.
Wonderful. So Dhruv, I mean, I think this is typically what Upeka talks about a lot of times, right? Like you talk to your customers, talk to your customers, and talk to your customers. I think, I mean, it's wonderful to see that you guys were able to pivot an old product into a completely new one by having long conversations. And it's also very heartening that the SMBs were very in this time to get on Google Meets for long,
Yeah.
long conversations. That's great, Dhruv. I mean, so I mean, let me ask you a slightly different question, which you probably don't like to be called as, but I'd still go ahead and ask you that, right? I know you don't like to be called a competitor to Swiggy and Zomato, but how and why do you think Thrive is emerging as a strong alternative to Swiggy and Zomato today in the restaurant business?
Yeah. So I think we have a very simple thesis. I think Swiggy and Zomato, I don't usually like to take names. We call them food aggregators. But existing food aggregators currently operate or have created an ecosystem, which is some sort of a zero sum ecosystem where there is nobody who is benefiting while volume is high, transactions are high. Currently, the consumer is slowly paying a premium. The creator, the restaurateur is losing money. The delivery agents are not getting the number of uh, revenue or wages that they're looking for, and the entire ecosystem is broken. So for us, the idea is we've always questioned where is this money going, right? And it lands up going into uh, 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 acquiring customers, developing new markets, and stuff like that. But we felt there is a simpler and cleaner model to do this. So I think that's the question that we're trying to solve at the moment. So that's how we want to do it differently. We want to move from a zero sum ecosystem to a positive sum ecosystem. Anybody who is part of this should, at the end of the day, maintain a margin, create revenue. We should be creating jobs, and there should be some sort of benefit that is going to each stakeholder. So I think conceptually we are trying to do something very similar, but just with a different revenue model, and that's where we're at. There is a lot of evolution happening at the moment. I think we've also only touched on the restaurants right now. There are things we are doing internally in terms of how we can influence all the other stakeholders, logistics, consumers, creators included. And we're hoping for a very strong Thrive 2.0 to come and really disrupt in the coming months, right? But we're at the center of these things. We understand the problems. Now we need to start amplifying these solutions and solving it at scale.
Awesome, Dhruv. Hey, there's a question that a user wants to ask us. I mean, so what advice would you give to people who are still doing research on their idea and who want to actually formulate a thesis around, whether that's a good business model to actually build or not? What would your advice be on that, Dhruv?
Yeah, so I think something in line with what we've always been told, right? I mean, is somebody paying for the value you're creating? And even if it is at research level, you don't have a product, are you able to get even a couple of people to kind of prepay for what you're doing? So I think if you are able to generate any revenue, right, at least you're working in the right direction, and then it's then it comes to, are there enough of such kind of people who are going to pay for what you're doing and stuff like that. So I mean, it'd be great to kind of understand your thought process as well, but we always looked at it from a revenue standpoint. Does that make sense or no?
So typically, I think if you had to give my perspective, typically mine and Drew's is more or less similar because these are the principles that Tipika basically teaches us. I mean, is it a high value problem? So does your customer have a lot of pain in that problem? That's point number one. Second, is the pain so high that they're actually willing to pay money to solve that problem or not? Exactly what Dhruv said. If you get these two things validated, and if you're trying to, like, if you're a software engineer and you're trying to build something completely weirdly out there, like, you're trying to do something in oceanography, it's going to be really difficult unless you have someone in the oceanography on your team. So having a little, I mean, trying to do something where you have a lot of expertise and understanding of the market, and getting these two things right should be good enough for you to validate your idea, and then you can move forward from there. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Coming back to Swiggy and Zomato again, a different question this time. Like, what is it that you're hearing from your customers? Like, what are the restaurants saying? Which model? I mean, are they trying to choose between these models? Are they trying to, like, evaluate both models and try what fits them best? What's happening? What are you hearing?
Yeah. So it's an ever evolving positioning, to be very honest. I think what's happened is, when we started, right, the idea was, um, uh, we were positioned as an aggregator, even though we did not want to at that moment. Every restaurant would put up at their location or on their social handle, order from Z, S, and Thrive. And the idea is, we would always tell them, this is your platform, right? Powered by Thrive. And I think after a point, we decided not to waste time having those conversations. We decided, let the restaurant position it to the best of their liking. And we will continue doing what we're doing, which is power their online ordering infrastructure. What we've come to understand is, for restaurants, in simple words, there are two kinds. One is have their own audience, do well, want to save money, spending too much on other aggregators. They come to us, we work really well with them, everything is great. Second, restaurants, long tail of India, struggling on Zomato, Swiggy, spending lakhs on ads, lakhs on every other platform, and is not able to create enough value for themselves. They're able to sustain maybe their offline businesses, haven't mastered how to go online, some of the other problems. Those set of businesses come work with us, and they tell us the problem for them is acquisition. We are not solving that today. We are trying right now to solve it in different ways that we know best, via partnerships, via new products, and this will only evolve. So we recognize the problem that the mass industry is facing right now, and mass market is facing right now, and we are working towards it. So I always acknowledge that every now and then, uh, think about it. In our locality, there are probably 50 restaurants. I will get, from my neighbor, I will get a call. My friend has a restaurant. He knows you're running Thai. He wants to talk to you. So his question is simple. आपका app कब आएगा? So then I can get listed and I can get orders. So I think we understand that. So idea is we have solved the problem for one set of customers. The good thing, right? The problem that we solve for these set of customers are the ones that contribute roughly about 60 to 70% of the other aggregators' revenue, right? These are the big boys. These are the ones that run food ordering in India. So we've gone after them, but we understand at some point, if we really want to grow a very large company, we need to take on the entire market. And now with certain partnerships in place, we are working in that direction. But it's a 2 to 3 quarter cycle in terms of product marketing and stuff like that. But we acknowledge the restaurant's problem, no denying that.
Okay, so let me try to see if I can make you spill some beans out here. You mentioned that there is a Thrive 2.0 coming, and also you mentioned that there are some problems from the restaurants that you recognize. Is this a piece of what you're trying to solve with the 2.0?
Yes, 100%. But the idea is not to do it in the conventional way. I think how it is being done at the moment. The idea is we have a few thoughts. We'll be starting to run a few pilots in the coming few months. The idea is to look at certain problems in a different way. Like I said, I think we don't want to go the route of creating an application, spending millions of dollars, acquiring customers, giving cash incentives to users to shift from the platform. That is not what we are going to be doing. The idea is to create a value business. We're going to do this the right way in a sustainable manner. There are certain partners that we've got on board that have gone through the cycle. I can share now. Domino's is one of the pioneers of Order Direct in terms of how they've grown their business. So the idea is we're going to take our thought process, their learnings, their vision, their understanding of the market. They've been at it for about 6 to 7 years now. For us, it's just been about 14 months. So the idea is we're going to solve these problems in a more equitable way. I think if that's the word, rather than solving it how it is being done currently. That's something that we're certain of. But more will come. I think we are working very closely right now. More in the coming quarters. Yeah.
So Disruption 2.0, the value SaaS way.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that concept is stuck with us. I think idea is to do it well, and we're seeing benefits of that, right? There's no denying that we are seeing benefits in terms of how we are operating right now.
Awesome, great, Drew. Hey, now that you mentioned Domino's, I mean, this is a question that, I think a lot of folks would be waiting to hear on. Like, how did you guys, like get into a partnership with Domino's and get them to actually invest in this platform in less than like about 14 months, now that you mention it?
Yeah.
How,
No, I
how did you
think
guys pull that off?
so. I think we realized very early we had a tailwind in terms of where we are at, and idea was I think for a change there were investors who had approached us left, right, and center. I think we were, especially the ones that had missed on deals with other aggregators, were very keen to understand how we can go about, how can we be involved with something that's upcoming. So I think we started having a lot of conversations. We put ourselves out there. We were clear that we reached a certain valuation. We were looking to raise a larger round, right? So I think, in fact, this happened through one of our clients. They connected us to Pratik at JFL, who's the CEO there. Um, and we, in fact, identified a few partners, JFL included, in terms of who can actually make a difference in terms of the journey that we are on, right? Whether it's ordering direct, whether it's logistics, whether it's payments, anything, right? We figure out what are the missing pieces in this puzzle, right? And instead of us sort of creating it ourselves, how can we work back with some great partners? So I think that's how we sort of stumbled upon Jubilant. We were lucky to be introduced directly. The conversations accelerated very quick, and we realized that instead of just raising money, the idea is to work with someone strategic who comes with significant amount of value in terms of thought process, assets, and money. So I think that's how we sort of stumbled upon Jubilee. They're a great team. We've been with them for a very short time, but they're a great team. We're super excited to work with them. And like I said, they are one of the pioneers within our industry. And in the last couple of months of speaking with them, spending time with them, we've realized why they are such pioneers. Right? They operate with a lot of vision, a lot of discipline. So super excited. And I think the journey ahead is exciting for both of us, JFL and Thrive.
So you're saying, I mean, you're telling everyone that your customer, whom you were speaking with all along, you actually introduced you to Pratik at JFL, and this deal actually happened. So, folks, I mean,
Yeah,
if you're listening, this is just one more anecdote of why talking to customers is so very important, and the kind of relationships and empathy that you build with customers is so very important. So, I mean, again, so Dhruv, I mean, so you mentioned that you've been working with them for a couple of months, with JFL for a couple of months, and then like what is it that you guys are like trying to accomplish by joining hands with Domino's? Like, is there a specific vision that you're trying to execute, or is there something that is very fluid that you can't share right now,
yeah. I
or
think
is it
I think
something, yeah, or is it
no,
something
I
strategic that you're trying to accomplish? Yeah.
so no. I think the idea is uh, uh, Thrive is uh, an independent company. Just to clarify, we will continue functioning independently. I think there are certain problems like the ones that we spoke of earlier that we are trying to solve, and we will continue to solve. What we've seen is JFL can be a pivotal partner in helping us solve some of these problems through their thought process, vision, assets that they have, brands that they have, etc. So I think nothing changes for us in terms of the path we were on. I think what we believe is with them we will be able to do it much faster rather than trying to do it by ourselves. I think that's just a key point that we had. And again, they are also I mean, they also operate a fund. They do much more than just operating food brands, right?
Yeah.
So they have their hands into multiple businesses. So we realize their value, and but yeah, to answer in terms of product, I think that's fluid at the moment. There are a few things that we are experimenting with. We're going to do it the same way. We're going to run pilots. We're going to talk to customers, and we're going to shape it. This time, we're just going to be doing it much faster and at a bigger scale. So
So the values aspect again.
correct, correct. Yeah.
All right. So we have a question, right? I mean, as a customer, I mean, like how does it make an impact on a customer, right? On an end customer, someone who's ordering food from a restaurant. So what is in
Yeah.
it for them?
So currently, we call our end customers that order from Thrive superheroes. What they do is ensure a 20% extra revenue for a local business. They ensure complete data transparency in terms of who they are passed on to the restaurant, so they can understand who their users are, market directly, etc. And most importantly, I think they let the restaurant create that relationship with the end consumer. So I think right now, if you look at it from a industry standpoint, right, customers are looking for benefits financially. I think those also can be obtained through Order Direct because most of our restaurants uh, usually inflate their cost on third party aggregators by that percentage so that they can maintain their margin. So you may find the product to be 10% cheaper if you're ordering direct. And like I said, it's you are actually helping an industry sustain and grow. And you're doing the right thing. I mean, I'm no one to preach in terms of what is right, what is wrong, but the idea is we want to create a more transparent ecosystem, and the consumer plays a key role. And I think that's just kind of answering more on that question, right? That is one of the challenges today. Uh, Staying B2B inhibits us to talking to our customer directly. principally, right? We always felt we go and talk to the business owner. So I think that's something that we are redefining ourselves. We want to be a platform. We don't see it as anything that's consumer or business. So I think this is feedback for us how we need to channel this concept to the end consumer much better. So, and I think there's no one better than us because we are the forefront of this right now. So we will continue doing this for the next a year or so at least. Till at least the industry understands why should I order direct?
All right. So, I mean, you mentioned that, I mean, first of all, I mean, let's not call them consumers at all. Like, I mean, let's call them in your language, superheroes. So you already have thousands of superheroes already using your platform today, right? Would you say that is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think not just a few thousands, many thousands. I think that's something that we've been able to achieve. But I think the kind of product we have, right? Our superheroes right now are concentrated in the geographies where we have certain number of businesses, certain brands. So the idea is, while they're already there, we want to make more superheroes, and that means we need more restaurants, we need more geographies, we need more partners. So then, and I think that's something that we're working on. But as of today, we've got some great users, and it's lovely to see when we go see the number of times somebody orders directly from a restaurant, and understand he also understands how much money he saved and how much value he's added to that business. So we're bringing that level of transparency.
Not using the term superhero here though, but like how can Aam Aadmi like me order direct from regions in the South India? Can Aam Aadmi like me order in South India very soon from Order
Yeah,
Direct?
yeah, no, definitely. I think what's happened is, given that we function so locally, in terms of the business, and because we sort of leveraged our previous set of clients, I think if you are in Mumbai, most of the good brands are on Thrive. You can find it on their Instagram bios, their website. You Google it, the order link will take you there. We've created a small page called thrivenow.in-order, where we've collated all the brands from the country that we work with. So an Aam Aadmi can detect their location, see if there is a relevant brand close to them that is ordering. If it is not, we always store that data in terms of who logs on with what location, and we will inform you and keep you updated as we keep on adding more locations. So currently, you had mentioned 3,500. We've crossed about 6,000 now in terms of restaurants. We are hoping to grow much faster in the next couple of months. So hopefully, in every pin code, in the next 3 or 4 months, we should at least have one good option available. I think that's the direction that we're working towards. But larger markets, yes, I think it's just a way of for us to kind of acquire business. The Bangalore's, Mumbai, NCR, we've got certain threshold, and the rest are coming very soon. So I think the team is working very hard on ground and through our digital partnerships. So we should have something much soon.
Can't wait to hear your expansion story, man. I think maybe when we schedule another call in the future, that will be the expansion could be a call in itself, and how you guys actually expanded from like 3,500 to at some point you'd probably be at 100,000 or a million restaurants. That would be a wonderful
Yeah,
story to tell. Awesome.
yeah,
Hey, so I mean, so Dhruv, I mean, so you've gone through this journey of being a founder for what, 7 years?
yeah. I think, yeah, 6.5 years, but yeah, it's been 2015. So it's been a heck of a ride.
Half a decade and more. All right. So, what are your personal learnings in this, Dhruv? Like, what did you go through and what did you learn? And what can you tell the community about, what you've gone through?
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot. I mean, there's no denying that. I think um, uh, it's a tough space, man. To be honest, just operating in any industry, just trying to scale, I think is I think as startup founders, our mind is always towards scale. I think it's not running a certain business with three, five, seven employees, right? We're always thinking on to the next level, to the next level. So I think um, in our early years, I think we thought scale and skipped everything else and blindlessly executed. I think idea is it's good to have a vision in terms of where we want to be, but we did not think enough keeping the customer at the center. I think that was a big mistake that we made. Getting a little specific, I think, from hashtag loyalty to thrive. In fact, we did this exercise where we said, let's write down all the mistakes that we made, right? Because it's a similar industry. How can we not re-repeat them, right? Because we're going after the same market.
How long
So
was it,
one,
man?
it was very long. It was a long. It was a. I think the discussion went on for about 3 or 4 days.
Oh man.
But there's so many mistakes we've made, right? I mean, there's so many pivots we've done internally. So I think, but one thing that I and all of us, I think, were hell bent on this time, right? Since we're going after SMB, um, we will not have a payments team. We will collect the money at source and we will charge what we should be paid for. So I think that was at the center of things. Currently at Thrive, all payments happen through us. That's when they're distributed to the restaurant, the riders. The idea is we want to keep control of that because we have built that ecosystem and we believe we should get paid in time. And we have also been aggressive. Zomato, Swiggy do settlements in 15 days. We do it in 2 working days. So we decide to challenge the norm and ensure we're doing it as fast as possible because we understand the importance of cash flow for a small business. But I think that was one major learning that we had in terms of pricing, in terms of payments, in terms of collection, in how can we fine tune and create a system that can solve a lot of these problems. I think that's been something that we've done well. There are a lot of mistakes that we continue to make at Thrive, but I think this is not one of them. Uh, uh, so I think that's why I think we're still learning. 6.5 years, but still, I think every product is new, every sub industry is new, and as you are aware as well, things are changing so rapidly in terms of our industry as a whole. We've got to sort of stay on our feet and move in the right direction.
So I mean, so Dhruv, so I'd like to have a copy of the book or notebook or whatever you have created in terms of the list of mistakes. That can be probably like a guide for a lot of future entrepreneurs to just go ahead and see that, hey, look, like absolutely don't make these mistakes and absolutely go ahead and make new mistakes. That would be something that you
Yeah,
should actually put online and maybe
yeah, yeah,
put it out for sale actually.
yeah. In fact, Upekha made us realize so many of these, right? In terms of um, uh, how not to sell to SMB in India, right? I think that was that was. I still remember in our early session, and we were just wondering, but then we don't have a business. What do we do? how how do we operate? All our customers are here. Should we pivot now? Is it too late? Is it too early? So I think there is a lot of understanding that I think all of us got. I think Upeka has been key in that phase. I think, and since it happened just before COVID, I think a lot of those frameworks came in super handy, and I think we were able to jot down our mistakes much better because we were able to understand what are even mistakes, right? So I think that was very interesting. But I agree with you. I think that uh, it, forget for the outside world, it would have been a sin for me if we were repeating it with our new product. So I think that was most important before we sort of pass it out. But yeah,
So did you guys like, I mean, go ahead and, like open that up like periodically, or is it just something that, you put aside, or how does it
no, I
work now?
think yeah, no, I think these are prominent mistakes that we made about five or seven. So I think it's like a mental checklist anytime somebody in the team proposes a certain growth idea or marketing hack or anything which somehow links to those 5 to 7 areas, I think the brain automatically says no and and to move in another direction. So I think it's very deeply ingrained now in our heads. Uh, we I felt we lost a lot of years with what how we were executing in the 2018 19. So I think we cannot take that so casually. I think we're a little strict about that in terms of how we continue to operate. Yeah.
That's wonderful, man. I think it's great that you guys are like actually made a list of mistakes. Most founders like me would even be like super scared to even just list down our mistakes because they'd be so long and we'd be embarrassed to go ahead and look at. But I think you'll take inspiration from you and your team, and I think just try to make a list of all the mistakes that we've made over the years. That'll be wonderful. So, I mean, I'll
Agreed.
go ahead and ask the last question there, Dhruv. So, like, what are your thoughts on actually building the startup? You mentioned that you don't want to go the traditional route. You don't want to burn millions of dollars acquiring customers, and you said that you wanted to build this in a sustainable way where the whole ecosystem benefits as a whole, not just the one player in the party. Like, what are your thoughts on actually building your company in a value SaaS or value driven way?
Yeah. I think the center of everything we do is going to be the community. Currently, we work with the community of restaurateurs. The idea is, yeah, within our industry, there are various stakeholders. Broadly, if I were to bucket them into four, it's the restaurant, it's the end consumer, and someone who's ordering like you. It's the rider, and it's the infra layer, which is us. That sort of binds everything together, right? So the idea is to bring the community closer and to ensure that if the community does something to promote Thrive, they benefit from it financially, and keeping them at the center of these things, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a restaurant. Our core have always been loyalty. I think we understand retention. So I think the idea is to marry that concept of creating a community. Don't have to call it a loyalty program, but we still create a community, and that's how we're trying to build the product going further. So I can share. I mean, we're launching a small initiative right now called Thrive First, where we are getting certain business restaurant owners, SMB and enterprise alike, to be part of this program where they have early access to our product. They have complete access to our product roadmap. They are able to get discounts when they order from each other's businesses as restaurant owners. The idea is we're taking certain steps with different stakeholders to create these communities. And like I said, I think overall for us, the product and the industry is very vast. So right now we are it's a puzzle for us with a lot of open pieces. I think the next 3 or 4 months is a window that we're hoping this puzzle will become a picture, right? So I think it's interesting to see where it goes. But we are running a lot of experiments right now. We are not fixated on a certain way of doing things, and we'll continue doing it like that.
All right, so that's in your DNA. I mean, to build it in a sustainable way and doing it differently and disrupting the industry as a whole. It's
Correct.
wonderful to hear that from you, Dhruv. I mean, I think this is what I learned today, right? I mean, from hearing from you, you guys absolutely showed empathy with the restaurants that were with you in March 2020. Just pause their subscriptions. You got on conversations with them, and today you help the restaurants like cut their commissions and earn more money. From a customer standpoint, you are giving them a chance to actually be loyal to their customers, and actually, in a way, they actually pay lower when they actually order direct from the restaurant. In a way, you're actually disrupting an industry that was already disrupted, and I think this disruption within a disruption is a great phenomenon to see, and to see it actually make this is being made happen by a team of founders who have been in that industry for half a decade, is actually wonderful. You guys have pivoted and pivoted and pivoted, and I think you guys have come to this. This is wonderful to see that you guys are executing at such high caliber without any fear. I mean, this is wonderful to see that you guys are taking on such large folks with such aggressive intent. This is great, Dhruv. I mean, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I think I wish you all the great success. And we can't wait to see the disruption 2.0 that you guys will bring in the next 2 or 3 quarters that you just mentioned. And I can't wait to have another conversation with you when you actually scale this up to 100,000 restaurants, and then we'll talk solely on how do you uh, scale up this business, and what can all of us actually learn from how to actually scale those businesses. Any
Yeah,
final
no,
words?
absolutely. No, no. I think I'm glad that we had this discussion. I think thank you so much for having me. I think no better platform than Opeka that brings us together to have this conversation. I think this, we were C6, right? I think C6 founders had a tough time. I think after the session trying to figure out, there were anyway so many questions. I think all of us, you included, a lot of us, you included, have managed to sort of go back to the drawing board. And I think that's wonderful to see. I think final. I think at my end, I think we've chosen a tough path. We understand that, and I think we're trying to work smart and diligently in terms of ensuring that we reach that milestone. So whether it's 100,000 restaurants, less, more, I think we are working on a certain vision that we will continue to implement, and I'm hoping we achieve those numbers and much more.
Great, bro. Hey, folks, I mean, for folks who are watching, I mean, if you would like to build a value-driven business or a value SaaS business, and if you'd like to be a part of this amazing, closely knit group of community of founders, I'd highly recommend that you go ahead and apply to be a part of this community at upeka.io. And
Yeah.
thank you all for tuning in today. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We will bring you much more of these kinds of conversations. And final words from you, Dhruv, and then we'll end it off.
No, I think thank you, Abhishek, and I think shout out to all founders building a SaaS business. I think not everyone knows that they're building a SaaS business, but if you're selling to a customer anywhere in the world, and you have an idea or a product, definitely you'll be lucky if you do read up on Opeka, manage to apply and get in. I think it's a privilege for us as founders, not the other way around. So definitely go ahead and apply as soon as possible.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful week ahead.